Let us know where in the world you're tuning in from. We'd love to hear from you in the comments. Let's begin. I never thought betrayal would come. Wrapped in the same warmth, I cherished my wife. The woman I had built my life around sat before me in the dimly lit kitchen. Her mascara streaked down her cheeks, the scent of bourbon thick in the air. The ice in her glass had melted into a puddle, much like the trust between us. Sabrina had been out with her friends again, a habit that had slowly become more frequent. But tonight something was different. I had heard the garage door only half an hour ago. Yeah, when I found her, she was already a wreck. The expensive bra I gifted her for our anniversary had a broken strap, and her silk blouse was missing buttons, revealing more than I ever wanted to see. I didn't ask questions right away. I just watched her hands tremble as she reached for another drink, her fingers tightening around the glass, as though it was the only thing keeping her together. "Tell me," I said, my voice calm, controlled. But inside I was burning. Who was he? Her bloodshot eyes shut up, wide and frantic. "What number, Louis?" "It's not what you think." I slammed my palm against the table, making her flinch. "Then tell me what to think." Sabrina stammered, her lips parting, but unable to form a solid explanation. My gut twisted. The woman before me was not my wife, not the Sabrina I had loved for years. This version of her was hiding something dark, something that turned my stomach with every passing second. "Louis," sigh, she hiccuped, a pathetic sound as she wiped her smeared lipstick. "I went out with the girls. We just had drinks, danced. Nothing serious then." "Why does your blouse look like someone tore it off you?" My words were edged with ice. Tears brimmed in her eyes. She looked away. "It was just a misunderstanding. A guy got too close. I told him to back off." I held up her phone. Andrew Parker. The name flashed on the screen, with messages that made my skin crawl. "Had a great time tonight. Hope I didn't cross any lines. Thinking about you. Let me know when you can talk." A deep breath escaped me. "Did you sleep with him?" Sabrina shook her head violently. "No. I swear on my life. Your life doesn't mean much to me right now." I shot back. I needed proof. The lingerie, the torn clothes, the flirty texts, all of it hinted at something I didn't want to accept. But the final nail in the coffin, a receipt in her purse, a hotel receipt dated for tonight. She didn't realize I had found it until I held it up. Her face went pale. "Sabrina," I said slowly, dangerously, "if you lie to me again, I swear I will walk out of this house and never look back." Tears streamed down her cheeks. "Louis the First." I can explain, but I already knew the truth. She had betrayed me, and she was about to learn what real betrayal felt like. Sabrina sat across from me at the breakfast table the next morning, her hands trembling as she clutched her coffee mug. Her eyes were swollen from crying, but I felt nothing for her pain. She had betrayed me, humiliated me, and now she was going to learn the cost of her choices. "I want to fix this," she whispered. "I love you, Louis." I forced myself to smile, masking the disgust boiling beneath my skin. She wasn't going to see my rage. Not yet. Instead, I reached across the table. Taking her hand in mine, she flinched, surprised by the warmth of my touch. "Then let's fix it," I said smoothly, watching hope flicker in her eyes. It was a lie. She thought I was weak, that I'd forgive and forget. She had no idea that I had already set my plan in motion. She would never see me coming. Sabrina thought she had won me back, but I made sure to change, just enough to keep her on edge. I started staying out later, not coming home right after work. When she called, I would answer, but my tone would be distant, uninterested. I made her feel what I felt, the slow decay of trust. One night, as I returned home past midnight, she was waiting in the living room. Her arms were crossed, her eyes desperate. "Where were you?" she demanded. I smirked. Out where?" I shrugged. "Just out." She blinked, stunned at my casual indifference. "Are you seeing someone?" she asked. Her voice, cracking the irony, made me want to laugh. I leaned in close, whispering against her ear, How does it feel? She swallowed hard, realizing for the first time that I wasn't the same man she had betrayed. While Sabrina spiraled in a paranoia, I made my next move. I hired a private investigator, a man who had uncovered more affairs than I cared to count. I handed him Andrew Parker's details, along with a simple request: find out everything about this bastard. Every woman he's touched, every secret he's hiding. A week later, the investigator returned with a file so thick, it felt like a novel of filth. Andrew wasn't just sleeping with my wife. He was preying on married women. At least for others, Sabrina wasn't special. She was just another notch in his belt. Perfect. This gave me the perfect ammunition. To destroy them both, I had to be careful. If I expose Andrew too soon, Sabrina would find a way to slip away from the consequences. No, I needed her to see it with her own eyes, to feel the same soul-crushing betrayal I had felt. So I set the trap. I made sure Sabrina found a mysterious earring. In my car, I left a lipstick stain on my collar, just barely enough to make her wonder. And then I told her I had a business trip. I wasn't going anywhere. I was setting her up for the biggest heartbreak of her life. Sabrina had been restless all day. I could tell, so that night I sent her a simple text: I'm staying late, don't wait up. I watched from a distance as she paced the kitchen, staring at her phone, torn between suspicion and desire. And then, like clockwork, she made the call to Andrew. Hey, can we meet? She whispered, her voice shaking, hook, line, sinker. I followed her. I watched as she drove to a cheap motel, stepping inside with nervous excitement. And just as she walked into Andrew's room, I texted her, turn around. She froze, her phone slipped from her hands. And when she spun around, I was standing right there watching, smiling. She was caught. Sabrina gasped, covering her mouth, her face drained of color. Louis, she choked out. This isn't. I raised my hand, silencing her. No more lies. She trembled, her eyes darting to Andrew, who was still half dressed. His face twisted in shock. Wait, what's going on? Andrew stammered. I turned to him, my expression ice cold. You tell me, Andrew. His jaw tightened. Look, man, this isn't what it looks like. I laughed, a dark, humorless sound. Oh, it's exactly what it looks like. And then I pulled out the thick file of his dirty secrets and dropped it onto the motel bed. Andrew's face pale, as his entire life unraveled before him. And Sabrina, she just stood there, shattered, silent, drowning in her own betrayal. Sabrina sat in the motel room, her face action, as I dropped the thick file of evidence onto the bed. Between her and Andrew, you think you were the only one. I sneered. Look at it. She hesitated, her fingers trembling as she reached for the file. Page after page revealed Andrew's disgusting history: flirting, seducing, and eventually using women just like her. Her breath hitched. No, this isn't real. Oh, it's real, sweetheart, I said coldly. And guess what? You weren't even his favorite. Her hands clenched the papers as she turned to Andrew, her betrayal doubling as the truth set in. You lied to me, she whispered, her voice shaking. Andrew scoffed. You knew what this was, Sabrina. Don't act like you weren't enjoying every second. A guttural sob tore from her throat. I leaned in close, my voice like a knife against her skin. Now you know what it feels like. She wasn't the victim anymore. She was just another fool in his collection. And this was only the beginning of her downfall. Sabrina sat on the edge of the motel bed, her hands shaking, as she flipped through the damning evidence. Her lips parted, a silent scream caught in her throat. This is fake, she stammered, clinging to her last desperate defense. It has to be. I crossed my arms, tilting my head. Really? Then why don't you go ahead and call the other women? Andrew's face contorted in pure horror. Wait, what other women? I smirked. Got him. Sabrina's breathing became ragged as she turned on him, realization slamming into her like a wrecking ball. You told me I was different, she whispered, tears spilling down her face. You said I was the only one. And her took a step back. Look, It wasn't like that. I cut him off with a low chuckle. Let me make this simple, sweetheart. I leaned in, my voice dripping with venom. You weren't special, you were just another easy target. Sabrina's legs gave out and she collapsed onto the bed. Her whole world had just shattered into pieces. And I wasn't done yet. I let Sabrina marinate in her misery for a few minutes before delivering my next blow. Don't worry, babe, I said, my tone mocking. I made sure everyone knows. Her head snapped up. What do you mean? I pulled out my phone, showing her the email I had sent to all her friends, family, and even her mother. A full breakdown of her affair with screenshots, dates, and undeniable proof. The color drained from her face. Louis, no. Please, my parents. I laughed darkly. Oh. And that's not all. I clicked on a video. It was your text with Andrew, scrolling one by one. Guess what's playing in the office group chat right now? I smirked. Hope you enjoy unemployment. She screamed, lunging for my phone, but I pulled it away effortlessly. This is what betrayal feels like, one said, stepping toward her. Remember this moment because it's the last time you'll ever have power over me. Sabrina fell to the floor sobbing. I walked away satisfied. The next morning, I woke up to 20 missed calls from Sabrina. I smirked, taking my time before answering. Good morning, cheater, I greeted lazily. Louis, listen, I was drunk. I made a mistake. Please don't do this to me. I sighed, pretending to think I'm okay. Tell you what, check your bank account. She went silent. I heard her typing frantically in the background. Then a sharp inhale. Where is the money? She whispered. I grinned. Gone. I had emptied our joint accounts, canceled all her credit cards, and moved every single asset into my name. You don't get to cheat and walk away happy, I said smoothly. I told you there's a price to pay, Louis. Please, you can't do this. I have nothing. I smirked. Exactly. And then I hung up. She was about to learn what rock bottom felt like. The day after I drained our accounts, Sabrina showed up in my office. Her once pristine appearance was in shambles. Her hair was a mess, her eyes swollen from crying, and she wore the same clothes from the night before. I barely glanced at her as she stormed into the reception area, demanding to see me. Mr. Reynolds, my secretary Hannah, called over the intercom, her voice amused. Your ex-wife is here. She looks desperate. I smirked. Send her in. Sabrina burst through the door, her breath ragged. Louis, please, you have to undo this. I have no money. I can't even buy food. I leaned back in my chair, studying her like a broken relic of the past. Not my problem, I said simply. Her face contorted. You're punishing me like I'm some villain. I made a mistake, but you're destroying me. I stood, walking toward her slowly. You destroyed yourself, Sabrina. I'm just watching. Her hands balled into fists. I'll take you to court. You think you can just leave me with nothing? I chuckled. Try it. The prenup you insisted we never needed says otherwise. Her entire body sagged as realization hit her. She was completely ruined, and I wasn't even finished yet. While Sabrina fell apart, I had another loosen to tie up. Andrew, I met with his wife first. Yes, that's right. The bastard was married. I had tracked her down, using the private investigator's files, and set up a meeting at a cafe. When she arrived, she looked completely oblivious to what was about to hit her. Mr. Reynolds, she asked hesitantly, you said you had urgent information about my husband. I slid the thick file of Andrew's affairs across the table. She flipped through it, her expression shifting from confusion to horror. Her hands trembled as she covered her mouth in shock. He's been cheating on me with how many women? She whispered, her voice cracking. At least 4, including my ex-wife, I said, my tone sharp. Tears welled in her eyes. I need to go, but I stopped her. One more thing, I said, sliding a USB drive toward her. She blinked. What's this? Proof that he's been embezzling money from his company. If you want to get even, now's your chance. Her eyes darkened. I knew right then and there Andrew's life was over. A week later, news broke at Andrew's workplace: fraud. Theft misconduct. Not only was he fired, but his name was being investigated for financial crimes. I made sure he couldn't work in his industry ever again. And Sabrina, she had no one to run to anymore. Andrew was out of a job, out of a marriage, out of excuses, and out of her life. Desperation changes people. 2 weeks after I left her in ruins, Sabrina showed up at my house. This time she wasn't angry or crying. She was dressed in a tight black dress, her hair styled like the woman I used to love. "Louis," she whispered, stepping forward, "I miss you. I know I hurt you, but let me fix it." She ran her fingers down my chest, her perfume overwhelming my senses. She was trying to seduce me. I almost laughed. I caught her wrist, my grip tightening just enough to make her breath hitch. "You think you can spread your legs, and I'll forget what you did?" I murmured, my voice sharp as a knife. Tears filled her eyes. "I love you, Louis." I stepped back, letting her hand drop. "You don't love me, Sabrina. You love what I gave you, but that's gone." And with that, I closed the door in her face for good. Weeks passed. I'd moved on. A new routine, a new woman in my life, and most importantly, peace. Sabrina, however, she was crumbling. She was homeless, couch surfing with friends who were starting to get tired of her. I heard through mutual friends that she was jobless too. Turns out, her boss wasn't thrilled about the emails I sent, exposing her. She had gone from a comfortable housewife to a nobody, with nothing, and the best part, she knew I was thriving. Sabrina had lost everything: her home, reputation, job, and even her self-respect. But she wasn't ready to accept defeat. I knew she would try one last move, a desperate attempt to sabotage me. And I was right. It started with rumors in my workplace. One morning, I walked into the office to find whispers around me. My co-workers exchanged uneasy glances, conversations cutting off. When I passed, I smirked. She was trying to take me down. "I call Hannah, my secretary. What's the talk today?" She rolled her eyes. "Your ex has been spreading lies, saying you cheated first, saying you manipulated her into the prenup." I chuckled, pathetic. "Let them talk," I said, leaning back in my chair. "Give it a day." And just as I predicted, her plan backfired. Because the thing about liars, they always get caught by lunchtime. My co-workers weren't whispering anymore. They were laughing. One of them, Kevin, approached me with a smirk. "Man, your ex really thought she could turn people against you." "What changed?" I asked him, mused. Kevin held up his phone, showing a message from one of Sabrina's old friends. "She's full of SHD. She cheated on Louis, we all saw. And now she's mad because he left her with nothing." Asterisk. I exhaled through my nose, shaking my head. Her own people turn on her. The weight of her downfall was too heavy for even her friends to carry. She wasn't just a cheater anymore. She was a joke, and I loved every second of it. While Sabrina crumbled, Andrew was suffering his own personal hell. After losing his job and his marriage, he hit rock bottom, and Sabrina wasn't there to save him. I heard through my sources that he had tried reaching out to other women, begging for money, favors, even a place to stay. Every single one of them ignored him. His reputation was ruined. And the best part, I made sure every woman he had played knew about his downfall. I even sent his wife one final message: "Don't just divorce him, take everything. Leave him nothing." And she did. Andrew was officially homeless and broke. Exactly what he deserved by now. Sabrina's friends had abandoned her. She had no money, no home, no job, and the walls were closing in. I knew she was jumping from couch to couch, relying on anyone who would take pity on her. But pity only lasts so long. One evening, I got an unexpected call. Sabrina sleeping in her car. The voice on the line said, I recognized the voice, her former best friend Lisa. "And why are you telling me this?" I asked. Lisa hesitated. "Because I thought, you should know that she's hit rock bottom. She won't say it, but she wants you back." I smirked. "Tell her." I said. "Good luck." I hung up. I owed her nothing. Weeks later, I got another text from Sabrina. It was short: Louie, please just talk to me. I'm sorry. I stared at it for a long moment. She was finally broken, but I wasn't. I didn't reply. I just let her sit in her regret, while Sabrina drowned in her misery. I was thriving. I had moved into a new home, built stronger friendships, and most importantly, found someone new. Her name was Victoria. She was nothing like Sabrina. Where Sabrina was selfish, Victoria was kind. Where Sabrina was deceitful, Victoria was honest. Where Sabrina had taken me for granted, Victoria saw my worth, and when I took her to dinner, one night something clicked. I had finally moved on for good. Sabrina must have heard through mutual friends that I was seeing someone new, because suddenly she tried again. This time she showed up at my house. I opened the door to find her standing there, pathetically small, her once confident aura completely shattered. Louie, she whispered, I know I don't deserve it, but can we talk? I leaned against the door frame, smirking about what she swallowed us. There is no us, I said coldly. There never was, Sabrina. Just me being blind to the kind of woman you really are. Tears streamed down her face. I loved you, she sobbed. I made a mistake, please. I cut her off with a sharp laugh. You didn't love me, you love what I gave you. And that's gone now. I closed the door right in her face. After that day, I never saw Sabrina again. She had vanished from my life completely. She had no job, no friends, no reputation, and no way back. She was finally nothing. One evening, as I sat on my balcony sipping a drink, Victoria curled up beside me. Tell me something, she murmured. If Sabrina ever truly apologized, would you forgive her? I thought about it, and then I smiled. She doesn't deserve forgiveness. Victoria smirked. That's what I thought. We clinked glasses and let the past fade away. Months later, I got one last piece of news. Andrew, he was in prison. His financial crimes have finally caught up to him. I smirked when I read the news. One less snake in the world. I had never felt freer. Sabrina was gone. Andrew was ruined, and I had won one last time. I opened my phone and scrolled the Sabrina's number. My finger hovered over it. Then I deleted it for good, because she no longer existed in my world. And as I leaned back, watching the sunset over my new life, I whispered the words I've been waiting to say. Goodbye, Sabrina. And with that, I finally let go.